Alright, the final game, Ke Jie is playing as black and Xiaoyu is playing as white. Let's see what happened. The game starts out like this, where Ke Jie starts with a very rare joseki that we pretty much don't see these days in professional games, a 4-5 opening. So white takes the remaining corner and black follows up with a very unusual enclosure. If black jumps here, then we would have a modern AI game. But in the actual game, Ke Jie wants something unconventional in the final game, which means that he does have some study on this particular joseki. That is pretty cool. So white approaches the corner, black plays the kema, and white now plays the joseki move, that is to play the 2-5. So another choice is for white to just approach, right? So this is also a playable move. But of course, white's move over here is simpler to manage in my opinion. Black protects the corner and white slides out. This is played very accurately by Xiaoyu. So you can see that he has prepared a lot against Ke Jie. He knows that Ke Jie knows this type of joseki. Black attaches into white, white harness on top. All these are kind of book moves, even if they're kind of uncommon to us. So black extends, white pushes on top, and Ke Jie now plays the second line Hane. Ke Jie in this game is really trying to take Xiaoyu out of the book. So here, the best move for black to play is actually just extend. And that's pretty intuitive. White now connects and black pincers. You can see that with this pincer, black can attack both groups at once and white has to deal with both of them. So I personally think this is just a more comfortable way for black to deal with the situation. In the actual game, Ke Jie plays the Hane and white bumps into black. The next move, Ke Jie plays this kema here. That's what was played in the actual game. I didn't quite understand that. I mean, even if white just turns here, I think this is still slightly better position for white because white was able to pierce through the territory here. Black can get this capture, but it only has so much value, right? There's a leak into your corner and white is pretty comfortable. So here, maybe a better variation for black to choose is to simply block here. White harness, black Atari, white connects, and black captures the stone on the outside. White cuts, this is looking at the Atari and capture the 3 stones. And therefore, black has to capture. That's the most efficient way for fixing this weakness. Some of my viewers might connect here, but that would be wrong because this leaves another Atari here. So the correct move is for black to capture. That's a very clean move. White Atari, black extends, white turns, black blocks, white Atari, black connects. And now white pushes towards the outside. Black Atari, white turns. The reason white is playing in such a broken way is because black doesn't have time to capture either group because there's a ladder over here. So black has to play the tiger's mouth, and now white can simply turn towards the corner. Black extends. This is a must-play move because it's absolutely huge in terms of territory, right? Even if when you play a move like in the center, white will simply give up on this, right? White can either Atari and capture you like this, which is huge. It expands the corner massively, and white can already sacrifice the 5 stones. Even if white plays the Atari over here, this is also super big. So black doesn't really have time to jump towards the center. The correct move is for black to extend, which is the correct move to play. So at this point, white will play a move to jump towards the outside. This is just for illustration purposes. Obviously, white can try different ways to jump out. Maybe this is just more efficient than 2-space jump. So at this point, this would be a more or less equal game moving forward. Next up, when black plays the tiger's mouth, white has to watch out for the corner and block here. Otherwise, black has the 2-2 peep, and this is going to cause some problems. Okay, so that is the correct variation for both players. But in this game, I feel like Ke Jie is just trying to play something fancy. So at this point, he played the kema, which I didn't quite understand. In the actual game, Instead of pushing through, Xiaoyu decides to connect. And now black blocks. White Hanes, black connects, and white also connect on the second line. And at this point, black extends towards the outside. This is pretty much must play, otherwise white can cut here. Well, in the actual game, white cuts here anyway. This is a suicide move, but this is testing black. If black blocks in the corner, which is really good for the corner, later on white can turn over here, right? Black has the Hane and white Hanes. Black captures. We can see that white got this Hane and Sente. And next up, white can also Atari. That's also a Sente. So black lost some points. That's why in the actual game, Ke Jie decides to block inside. This is the best for points, but leaves a lot of Aji in the corner. AI thinks that black should block on the outside, but for human players, I think it's more understandable to block here because points is more practical. Next up, we have white pincers the two stones over here, very intuitive, and black counterattacks by pincering white. White attaches into the corner, and black harness. So at this point, the commentator was suggesting that black should just extend, white connects, and black jumps towards the outside. Now, by giving up the corner, black manages to connect the two groups, and then by sacrificing some territory, black can gain the momentum to attack white over here, and this stone also looks a bit weak. So this is one way of playing. Now, the reason the commentator didn't like black's play over here is because when white plays the tiger's mouth, black Atari, white makes the ko. And this is quite difficult for black. The reason is because the Aji that white was able to create on the top left corner. Because white's turning here is going to be a Sente. Now, when white makes a ko over here, usually in the early game there's no ko threat. But in this game it's different. White does have a ko threat on the top left. So this is why making the ko over here is quite strong. And Ke Jie is definitely feeling uncomfortable in this position. Here, white cannot play the Atari. If you Atari, black captures. White Atari, black connects, white connects, and black will cut on the fourth line. We can see that white is kind of broken into pieces. Because of the stone over here, white can't even ladder the stone over here. So this would be a very good fight for black. So white's only and the best choice is to make the ko. Black takes, and white starts using the ko threat in the top left corner. And there's no way for black to give up this, right? This is too big. So black has to extend, white takes back, and black extends the third line stone, making the ko slightly less severe by at least saving the stone over here. White now escalates the ko, relying on the fact that he has a lot of ko threats on the top left. Very well played by white. Black takes, and white crawls into the corner. For the same reason, black has to respond to that. White takes back, and black now goes for a very light ko threat. So here, of course, white can just capture, and black Hane is over here. This would be a better position for white, just because of the early game planning. White made use of the Aji on the top left corner, start a ko over here, and gain a lot of benefits. So this would be a better position moving forward. And the reason that this would be a better position is also because the fact that Ke Jie played a lot of weird moves on the top left. In the actual game, Xiaoyu wanted more profits, right? He knows that he's ahead in this position, but he wants to maximize the profit, so he doesn't really want to give up the stone over here. Black takes, white now cuts on the second line. Black Atari, and white takes the ko back. Black cuts, and white Atari on top. Here, black takes back. And at this point, I was very surprised that white didn't just capture over here. This would be a very big move. And you can tell from this, the fact that white didn't play this move, that Xiaoyu is very nervous. I mean, yes, this is the best chance he's got in his life to become a champion. He has never become a champion before. And he's facing, Ke Jie, who's been champion many, many times. And of course, he's very, very nervous at this point. And for most of us, this is so intuitive, right? Even for like amateur level players, I'd say more than half or 70% of my viewers would just capture here in 5 seconds without thinking. And of course, black will connect here. But I mean, this is just a better position because this Panuki is so strong. And it's just a better position for white. The Panuki is so much influence towards the outside. It's so clean. And for professional players, this is so obvious as well. But I guess in this game, Xiaoyu is just overthinking. And it happens a lot when you're nervous. You're just like, oh, maybe there's a better way. Maybe this is not really advantage. This doesn't really give me a lead and stuff like that. But in a practice game where Tu Xiaoyu doesn't have any pressure, then this would be a no-brainer. He would just take here. So stress is definitely doing a lot to Tu Xiaoyu in this game, I would say. So in the actual game, when black takes back, white decides to go for more close threats. Black captures, white takes back, and now Ke Jie connects. When white plays the Atari, Ke Jie takes, and here Tu Xiaoyu captures the stone on the third line. I think from AI perspective, it doesn't matter as much. AI also like this position as white. The problem is when you capture like this, there's a cutting point on top. So this makes white's Panuki not as strong because your Panuki is happening on the third line, where previously it's happening on the fourth line. And that's very different. And also the fact you have an extra cutting point. This is a very a lot harder for human players to manage than the previous variation. Ke Jie, of course, has to get compensation by connecting in the corner. And now Tu Xiaoyu plays the best move on the board. That is to play this type of, it's like elephant Keima move. But this is kind of like a vital point for these two stones as well. It's looking at the Kosumi and try to kill the two stones. So at this point, instead of responding right away, Ke Jie decides to play the approach, right? If white spends another move, then Ke Jie gets another move on the outside. So there's no rush for white right now. White answers by Tanuki here and play the Keima. I really like this move because he just responds. It looks very passive, and now black can actually go into the 3-3, and this is a little tough to deal with. It's like, do you want to block on this side, or do you want to block on top, right? So a lot of viewers might also be interested in blocking here because you have a Panuki, so this becomes territory. But is it big enough, right? So at this point, it's a tough choice for white to make. But by playing the Keima here, white doesn't have to make that choice, right? It's all white's territory, more or less. Well, not yet, but it's very close to becoming territory. Okay, next up, we have Ke Jie playing a Kosumi in the center. This is a must-play move, or else white's going to attach here, right? If you try to build any moyo and white gets this attached, it's very difficult for black to build anything. The other idea for this Kosumi is that black is also aiming at the weakness that white has over here. White now plays the pincer, black plays the Kosumi. You can see from this move that Ke Jie knows that he's very behind after this variation over here. Normally there are two variations. One is for black to jump up. The other one is to counter pincer. But of course Ke Jie is not happy with any of the book moves. He wants to play more fierce variations by playing the Kosumi. White pushes, black honeys, white honeys, and black extends. White keeps pushing on top, and black honeys. This is a very forceful variation. And of course, Tu Xiaoyu here has to cut. Black jumps to protect the shape, and now white plays the jump here, protecting the corner. Black extends, and white also extends out. And here, black jumps out. Otherwise, white will play the Kosumi and enclose black. So the jump is very necessary. And here, white comes back to fix the shape. So at this point, Ke Jie is not going to follow up with an attack because the tiger's mouth makes white's group really strong. So there's no way temporarily to attack white in any meaningful way. Therefore, black extends over here, following up with the Kosumi idea. Try to attack this entire group. White blocks on top, and now Ke Jie plays the jump here. Instead of directly playing the Hane, which is not necessarily going to work, right? So first of all, white can think about just jumping out in a very flexible way. And I'm pretty sure for a flexible player like Ke Jie, this is so familiar. But even if white cuts, I'm not sure if black is going to win this fight. If you extend out, which is a must-play move to save your stone, then white has this Kosumi here. This puts black in a very awkward situation, right? If you connect here, then I can block. How are you going to get back? Likely you won't. And if you bump into white, white can also wedge here to capture the two stones. So temporarily, this doesn't work for black. That's why in the actual game, black jumps towards the center, and white plays the Kosumi to fix the problem in a very efficient way. Alternatively, white can also think about a very aggressive variation by playing the Kosumi here. Black pushes, white blocks, black cuts, white Atari, black extends. This is all very forced. White now plays the tiger's mouth, black blocks, and white pushes out. Black pushes through, white Atari, black extends, and after that, white will play the net, which means that 4 stones are dead, but doesn't mean this is game over for black because black can Atari and Atari on the first line. When white connects, black will Hane. White connects and black plays the so this is a sente, right? Otherwise, this is 2 versus 2. So white has to add another move and black comes back to Hane and try to kill the group over here. So the result of this is more or less an equal position. So that's one of the variations that white can also think about. In the actual game, the kick is an efficient way to fix the cutting problem, and it's very understandable for humans. Black bumps into white, white blocks, and black plays the Atari, and temporarily white doesn't have to connect here. White plays the Kosumi and fix the cutting point. So you can tell at this point, so first of all, we saw like the hesitation when white was fighting over here. Instead of capturing this stone, white chose to capture the stone on the third line, which is a slightly worse variation, a lot harder to manage for white. But also from this move, you can see that this looks very good to us. Like, I mean, this is a rock solid move for an amateur level player, but for professional level player, a more intuitive move is for white to play the shoulder hit like this, right? Fixing this cutting point in a more efficient way. And this looks a lot more professional, puts a lot more pressure on black. But I guess Xiaoyu is just very nervous in this game, and he played the most rock solid, not super efficient move to fix the cutting point. Next up, we have Ke Jie coming in to try to threaten the life and death for white. Ke Jie is playing very aggressive and very active and puts a lot of pressure on white. White blocks and black extends. So here, this is a mistake by Xiaoyu to simply defend here. If you remember from my Invader series, for people who have followed my channel for a while, I've talked so much about the 3 principles, and I would say that number 1 principle is counterattack. So whenever you attack like this, the first thing to think about is not how to chicken out and live yourself, rather is to aim at your opponent's weakness. So not only this is true for any amateur level players, even if you're a 9-dan professional, you still have to follow the same principle. And by blocking here, Xiaoyu is not really following the principle. He just wants to live, and that's not the correct move to play. Here, white has a good opportunity to start a counterattack through here by threatening the 2 stones like this. Or white has a very famous tsuji that is to attach into black. This is a very counterintuitive one, but when black pushes through, white will Hane. Now thanks to the Hane, white can have a more forceful counterattack against the 2 stones over here. This would be a more active way for white to play this game. In the actual game, white plays the block and black extends. We can see that black gains some extra territory and is still trying to threaten white. White now jumps on the second line, threatening to connect back. Black kicks, preventing that. And white now simply just play the triangle, trying to make an eye. And this looks really painful because black extension has a lot of influence towards the outside. And at this point, white turns once again. We can see that white obviously has 2 clear eyes. Now, if black tries to break this eye by force, it's not a good idea because black's outside is just too weak, right? It's very difficult. When white plays some sort of counterattack, this is not going to work. So black doesn't want to play that right now, which means that white is pretty much alive. But living in this way, move number 1, move number 2, move number 3, just to live this group over here is way too passive. And now the game becomes a lot closer than before. All right, so in the actual game, Ke Jie takes the momentum and play the keima over here. This is a very nice shape to learn from Ke Jie. Usually when you have a jump like this, the best shape is not to jump down, right? Jumping down is not great because white has this double peep, and it's going to become a problem for black very soon. When you play the keima, when white plays the peep, at least the cutting is not as severe. There's still a cutting, but it wasn't as severe as before, right? We can see the difference. If black has to jump over here, then we see that you have 2 cutting points instead of 1. When I cut here, your stone here is not well placed, as if the stone was here. That's why the shape move for a jump is usually a kema to try to enclose white, right? This exposes the least weaknesses possible. Okay, in the actual game, white jumps towards the center. That's a very well played move. These 2 stones cannot be captured. They're very important. And now black clamps into the corner, trying to threaten life and death for white. White connects, black honeys, and now white attaches into black. Not only trying to lift the corner, but also threaten the connection that black has. Black honeys, and white bumps into black. So here, I think the honey was a bit of overplay by Ke Jie. Maybe he could have played something else, such as just bumping to white and just be safe. So this was a bit of an overplay, and in the actual game, Xiaoyu decides to go for a counterattack, which is the correct idea. Black blocks, and the next move is what shocked me and shocked a lot of people. White simply played a bamboo here. And this is just very surprising, because usually when we bump into black, for human players, it's very intuitive to just cut over here. Now, this is actually the correct move to play for white, because when black connects, white plays the tiger's mouth, black connects, and now white can play the second line tiger's mouth. We can see that with this move, white is pretty much safe here, and black has to deal with the problems on the outside. And that's still a very fierce fight. But in the actual game, Xiaoyu was so nervous, and he just played a bamboo. And this looks very passive, because we were expecting cutting, but now black has the time to fix any cutting outside as he wants. So this just shows you that in this game, like, Xiaoyu is really, really stressed out. Like, on a normal day, he would just cut here without asking any question. So it's the same thing with the ko over here, and it's also like with this move over here. White is trying to play safe, but also try to play the best move, but also try to be aggressive, and then it's just a bunch of conflicts going on in his head, and that led him to play this move. Black connects. This is a very important move for black because it fixes a lot of weakness, and white now cuts on the third line, because here if you cut like this, then when black connects, we can see that when you play the tiger's mouth, the stone over here was supposed to be on the second line. This stone doesn't protect white as much, right? This corner is like in trouble at some point. So in the actual game, white follows up with the idea of cutting on the third line and try to just lift the group. Black Atari, white extends, and black now plays the tiger's mouth, fixing the most severe cutting point. And locally, this is just a better variation for black. White now turns on the second line, black extends, and now white plays the monkey's face toward the center. This is a very important move because it builds a lot of moyo in the center, but it's also looking at some weaknesses that black has over here, further strengthening the life and death situation over here. Black starts with a bit of a poking, and white now jumps on the second line to lift the group. And at this point, black finally comes in to invade the moyo over here. It's very important because black is already very thick here, so this stone has a lot more support. White attaches, black honeys, white extends, and black plays the kema towards the center. White now goes for a counter attack. Black connects, and now white jumps towards the center. So this is a very well played move. It achieves two things. First, it encloses the border over here, but also it's looking at bumping into black and just capture the 3 stones. So this move has a lot of value. Ke Jie now jumps into white's territory, and here white cannot defend. And that's quite obvious, like, because if you defend like this, it's so painful, and you won't even get 10 points over here because this is still like you're still leaking on this side. So no matter how much lead white has to counter attack over here. White decides to attach black. That's the shape move. Black honeys, white extends, and black now cuts white. A very fierce fight breaks out. White honeys on the outside, and black decides to start even more conflicts on the board. Right? There's a big skirmish over here, but instead of deciding right away what to do, black decides to start another fight over here. White pushes, black cuts, and white plays the tiger's mouth. It's very important, otherwise there's an Atari and the entire group is dead. Black extends into the center, very aggressive, and now white plays the wedge, making sure at least white captures the eye over here. Black plays the tiger's mouth, and now white plays the keima towards the center. Now temporarily, these two stones they're not like easy to be dealt. Like you can't really run them immediately. Therefore, black starts a counterattack, cutting off the connection between the panuki and the two stones, and start a very fierce fight. And after the fight, depending on what happens, then black can decide what to do with the two stones over here. White pushes on top, black hanes, white hanes, and now black Atari. White crawls on the second line, and black bumps into white. White cuts, and black takes the ko. White connects in the center, and black also connects the stones over here. Otherwise, if you just connect and white cuts, we can see that white gains so much territory. So that's not acceptable. Black has to get the stones out. White takes back. There's a snap back here, so we have a very big ko fighting out. Black now attaches into white, and white connects on the third line. This happens to be a mistake. White should have defended here because this group is not very strong. So white should have defended here and keep fighting the ko. But in the actual game, white connects. Now, the consequences of playing the connect and claiming all the profits here is that your corner over here is going to suffer. Black pushes, white cuts, black Atari, white Atari, and black captures. White extends, black cuts, white cuts black, and black pulls the stones out. And this looks like white is dead locally, right? Like, so white doesn't even have one eye locally, and white has to do something about the three stones. So he plays the crawl, black blocks, white cuts on top, and black extends. White connects, and black keeps crawling. So a question here would be, how come white can't play the kosumi here? The kosumi can't really get the four stones back safely because black can still play the throw in and then start a ko over here. So this is still a ko. In the actual game, white cuts, black extends, and white connects. And here Ke Jie plays the crawl. This is very aggressive, but this is also a very big overplay. Maybe a better move is just for black to Atari on this side and capture the four stones. Locally, this is three liberties versus two, and then it means that this corner is dead, and also these four stones are dead. So in compensation, white needs to try to kill this whole thing in the corner. So the next move, white will probably play the attach here, making use of the liberty issues that black has to try to capture the 6 stones that black has over here. So this position is a slightly better, or I think it's not slightly, it's actually just a better position for black at this point because of all the slow moves that white played in many places. But I mean, at this point, I think the game is still very chaos. Like, I mean, how does black live the 6 stones? And can black even live the 6 stones, right? Probably black will make some sort of sacrifice and try to gain some profits, and then it's just going to be a trade. All right. So this is not what Ke Jie has chosen. He decides to crawl into the corner, and white plays the Atari, Atari, and Atari. The reason black cannot turn here is because white Atari and this connect comes with an Atari. So that's going to be a problem for black. In the actual game, black captures, white Atari, black connects, and white hanes on the second line. Black cuts, white Atari, and here black comes back to capture the 4 stones. White pushes on top, so we have more or less the same result where black captures the 4 stones and the corner, but white manages to just capture the whole thing over here. So it's a trade. And now black bumps into white, white blocks, and black plays the attach here. That's just some exchange move. It doesn't really save any of the stones over here. So now black plays, black runs out the stone. The AI does not like it, but I personally, I find it very interesting that black runs the stone out because it creates a lot of algae inside white center. White Atari, and here black plays this move over here to prevent white playing the bamboo and kill the 3 stones. A very big move. And here white comes back to put pressure on the two stones. So because black added a move over here, the attach over here becomes a little bit more realistic. Therefore, white adds another move. It's a very defensive move to make sure that his group is okay. So at this point in the game, the game is becoming more and more equal. Because previously Ke Jie had a lead over here, right? So Ke Jie managed to kill both groups over here, but Tu Xiaoyu got all of these in compensation. But at some point, Ke Jie decided to extend the stone over here, allowing white to Atari. Black could have Atari on the second line and then Atari on the first line to gain some endgame. So by sacrificing these two stones, Ke Jie actually lost some points. So at this point, Ke Jie is desperately trying to cause trouble in the center, and therefore he cuts in the center. That's a very sneaky sequence by black. Tu Xiaoyu has to defend very carefully here. If white plays the Atari, then black is going to cut, and this is very dangerous for white. If white plays the Atari, black will extend. Here white has to connect. So because black extensions are sente, white needs to defend that. And black extends towards the center. White Atari, black connects, and white connects over here. We can see that even if there's not like a big problem happening right away for white, we can see that white's center is very vulnerable, and there's a lot of aji that black can play. For example, there's the wedge over here to squeeze points away from white, right? Against this move, white has to Atari like this and then connect, and we can see like white lost a lot of points. Black can also think about playing the Atari here and then just keep extending and then play the first line Kosumi and try to cause problem here for white. And also another idea is for black to cut over here. When white plays the Atari, then black has this Atari over here, causing problems on top as well. So the aji in here is very severe. And especially when both players are under time pressure, it is a very worrisome thing for white. When white plays the Atari and black cuts, now if white plays the Atari over here, that's even worse because black will immediately have something very serious. Black will play the squeeze Atari. If white captures, then black captures in the center. White Atari, black connects, and white has to extend, otherwise black will Atari and push and cut. So white has to extend. Now black cuts in the center. White has to respond to that by capturing the group. Black Atari, white extends, and black plays the bamboo. We can see that white is collapsing here. So I'm aiming at cutting through. If white connects and black connects, and this becomes a liberty fight, and white cannot win this because so even if white managed to win, then black is going to get so many squeezing move on the outside that this is going to be disastrous for white. But first of all, because black's whole thing is connected, the liberty fight is actually not looking great for white. But at this point, surprisingly, Tu Xiaoyu has remained very calm, and his reading is very clear. He played the Atari in the center. And that's a great move that prevents a lot of the aji, and temporarily there's nothing for black. Black decides the Atari from behind, forcing white to connect. And at this point, Ke Jie plays the push here. White Atari as a sente, black connects, and white squeeze in the center, making sure that black cannot play the tiger's mouth Atari. Black now plays the cut in the center, white Atari, black extends, white Atari, and black connects. White capture the stones in the center. So this is just a sequence for black to gain some endgame. And at this point, black has to drag the stone back. This is a very important two stones because not only it's about territory, but also about life and death for white. White double honey, black Atari, white connects, and black capture the stone on the second line. And at this point, white plays a time suji. Black throws in, white takes, and black comes back and capture the 4 stones. White squeeze, black connects, and at this point, because Tu Xiaoyu managed to successfully resist all the attack from black in the center, white protected everything in here without losing anything. So Ke Jie's sacrifice did not really get the results that he wanted. So at this point, this is a slightly leading game for white. If white plays everything correctly from this point on, he's going to probably win the game by 1.5 points. So here, the correct move for white to play is to actually block on the second line. If Xiaoyu blocks on the second line, then this is a winning game for white, as I said. In the actual game, white connected, and let's see why connecting over here is not big enough. In the actual game, Ke Jie plays the tiger's mouth. This is a sente. If white plays somewhere else, then black is going to play the wedge over here, and white is dead. Because if white Atari, black cuts, white has to capture, and black squeeze. And this is the time for white to resign, because white is dead. So in the actual game, white blocks. That's a must-play move. And then black pushes in the center. White blocks, and black now runs the stones out. And this really hurts for white, because the sequence goes like white pushes, black Atari. When white connects, it looks like this is collapsing for black, but black can play the first line connection. When white captures the 3 stones, black can capture 1 stone back, and we can see that black managed to connect. The problem with allowing black to be able to connect underneath is that black gained a lot of points in this process. So black gained some points over here because black never has to worry about capturing the 4 stones. And also black gained some points over here, plus the point that black was able to gain by capturing the stone. So all that together is a lot of points, but the worst problem is that later on black might cut over here and forcing white to play an extra move in his territory. So all that combined is bigger than connecting the 2 stones over here. At this point, the game becomes a 0.5 game. It's really, really close at this point. All right, so let's see what happens. White now jumps into black's territory. Here, maybe a more precise move is for white to exchange this move with black's connect first, and then hop in. In the actual game, white just hops in like this. And now black plays the precise move by playing over here. We can see that there's a potential for black to get more than 1 point by capturing the stone in this way, right? Because previously when you played the Kosumi, like this, we can see that maximum black is going to capture here and gain this 1 point. But when you get this exchange, we can see that black has the potential to capture more than 1 point. White now bumps into black, and black plays the squeeze. White has to make the eye, and now black captures the stone in the center. White has to get the 2 stones back because those are huge. And black connects on top. That's a must-play move. And here, white decides to play the Keima. This is the the biggest move that's remaining on the board right now, right? So it looks like this move is also big, but it's not as big as the Keima here because black is going to jump over here. It's a lot of mutual territory. Okay, so white plays the Keima, and here this is an important endgame technique, right? If black simply blocks here, that would be a mistake because white can squeeze black, and black has to connect, and we can see that white gains a sente, and then he can come back and play the Atari. So that's going to be a problem because white able to reduce black in sente and come back and take a very big endgame. So instead of letting white getting sente, the correct move is what black played, and this is a very nice Tsuji. That is to attach to your opponent's second line stone. This shape happens quite a lot, so I encourage you to kind of remember the local sequence. White pushes through, black cuts, and white now has to crawl on the second line to protect the 1 stone here. We can see that white gains slightly more territory, but white is getting a gote, and now black can play elsewhere and get the sente. So black Hane connect, and we can see this is a lot of points. And then we see the brilliance of playing in this way to get a sente. It's a very nice endgame technique. All right, so at this point, white comes back, play the Atari. That's an absolute sente. But before black answers, black decides to run in the corner. And after, these are pure time Tsujis. Maybe Ke Jie was under a lot of time pressure. And then Ke Jie comes back and connect on top. White now squeezes into black, black connects, and white comes back to protect the stone over here. After a few exchanges over here, black squeeze over here. That's a sente. White has to connect. Black Atari, white connects, and now black comes back to capture the stone. See, now Black managed to get 3 points, right? It's 1 point plus the capture, which is 2 points. That's 3 points, where previously Black was not able to achieve that. So White lost a little bit of profits over here. White now plays the Atari. Black captures, White connects, and Black captures the stones over here. This gives the possibility for Black to Atari here. White Atari, Black connects, and at this point, very strangely, Tu Xiaoyu lost this game because of time. So so he just like, it was like 3, 2, 1, 0, and then he did not place his stone, and then he lost on time, which is really weird. Um, yeah, I was expecting something normal would be they count the game and they like, okay, you lost by 1.5, or or he resigns, right? I didn't expect Tu Xiaoyu to lose on time in a final, but I think Tu Xiaoyu knows that he's losing, right? Like because the board is very settled, so and for professionals like them, it takes about 20 seconds, 30 seconds to count the whole board. So he realizes that he is behind and there's no way to come back, even if the difference is very small. At this point, White is going to lose by 1.5 points. It's either, well, it depends on what happens with this code. So it's either a half point or 1.5 points. So overall, I think both players played quite well. Ke Jie has been playing very aggressive, which is not necessarily his style. And Tu Xiaoyu has has played pretty well in the beginning, but later on he played a lot of moves that shows that he's very stressed out, and that's just very normal. Like when you want the champion so bad, the psychological factor will just kick in, and you would just be struggling with the stress. So I feel like Tu Xiaoyu could definitely become world champion very soon if he managed to overcome some of the psychological challenges that he currently that we see today in this game. Anyway, this has been the final 3 games between Tu Xiaoyu and Ke Jie. I hope you guys enjoy this series. There's a lot other tournaments going on. I think there's one that is like Korea versus China. Yeah, and it's like a final. So I'm definitely gonna check out that game and hopefully get it out by the weekend. If you like the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one.